So we're going out to our mangrove long-term study plot that's here near the Vester Marine Field Station. What we've been witnessing over the last year and a half or so has been sort of this delayed mortality in this system. Hi, my name is Brian Bavard. I'm a wetland plant ecologist in the Department of Ecology and Environmental Studies within the Water School at Florida Gulf Coast University. There's debate in the scientific literature as to what makes a mangrove a mangrove. True mangroves have adaptations that allow them to survive within flooded environments, so they're wetland species. They have special adaptations to be able to deal with the salt environment that they're living in because they're positioned within the estuary. And then lastly, they are what we refer to in biology a viviparous species. And all of that means is they give live birth just like human beings do. Here in Southwest Florida, we have three main species of true mangroves.
What I have in my hand is red mangrove, which is scientifically called Rhizophora mango. And it's usually found in more of the lower elevation of the mangrove forest. It has a whorled pattern of its leaves, like it goes around rather than just to the sides. This one is the black mangrove. You can usually see like the front part of the leaves are more dark green, and then the back are super like grayish, and it has salt on the back. And then this one is called the white mangrove, and the scientific name of it is Leguncularia racemosa. And you can identify it. If you raise up the leaf to the light, you can see little dots that are in the center of the leaf.
Here's a mangrove tree crab here. It's a little one, but he's nice right in the sun. So this is one of our fiddler crab species here, and they dig holes in the soil which help to aerate the soil, which the mangroves will appreciate because it'll help oxygenate the soil for them. There are raccoons out here. A lot of wading birds will come in here and they're eating crabs and snails and other crustaceans that are in here, insects. Fish will use this when the tide is high. So right now the water levels are relatively low in this system because it's the dry season. In the wet season, we'll be standing in maybe knee or shin deep water. And so there will be small fish that will use this as a nursery ground. And they're using this as habitat for food, but also it offers them protection against bigger fish that might be out in the adjacent bays. One of the things that we've observed post-Ian that we didn't really recognize is how important it is at collecting and trapping material from the landscape. When there is a storm, it's moving a lot of our garbage off of the landscape, and these systems are trapping it and preventing it from moving any further. So we could argue that that is maybe protecting our offshore communities from having that garbage get swept out, but it might also be protecting it from being washed back into our yards inland as well. Mangroves here in Southwest Florida are super critical to the local economy. The energy that flows from the mangroves out into the bays that we've got here supports the fisheries that are important both commercially but also for sport fishing activities. They also help to take up nutrients that are coming downstream from inland sources of water as they flow out to the Gulf. So they're taking those nutrients out, they're helping to settle sediment out of the water column and deposit that here in these mangrove islands that we're standing in here today. But they also help in providing us protection from tropical storms and hurricanes when they hit our shorelines. And so they're helping to absorb some of the wave energy and some of the wind energy that's coming from those tropical systems, and that protects our homes and our communities that are usually on the inland side of mangrove systems.
I think mangroves are important, especially for me as someone that's from the Bahamas. Mangroves are a big part and a big reason why we have such an important fisheries industry. It's also a big part of why we have homes, and a lot of our homes, we don't have a big mass of land on the island, so we need those mangroves to stop the storm surges or prevent them at least.
Immediately following Hurricane Ian, we came out probably less than a week after the hurricane made landfall. And the first things that we observed from the edges of the mangroves was that where the storm surge was, which is probably about 5 feet above my head in here, the leaves were still on the trees. Everything above where the storm surge was, the leaves had been blown off from the winds. And so we thought that the storm surge had protected these mangrove systems. And they looked relatively in good condition for several months after the hurricane hit, until maybe about December. And that's when our students that were working out here began noticing that some of the trees were appearing to start to die. And we didn't know why that was. And if you look at the soil here, this sediment appears to have reduced oxygen flow down to the roots. And it's killed the roots that are below ground here. That death has reduced the ability of the trees to take up water to supply water to the leaves, and it's ended up killing the trees that are out here. Here you can see some of the sediment that I just dug up out of the soil. So this is that gray material here is that sandy sediment that got deposited by Hurricane Ian. The reddish colored material here is peat, which is the slowly decaying plant organic matter. So it's things like leaves and roots that are just slowly decaying in the soil here. And it decays super slowly because there's a lack of oxygen in the soil because it is inundated so much of the time with water when the tide comes in.
I would say if this system was to experience another hurricane like it did for Hurricane Ian in another year or even 5 years, I don't expect the system to recover very fast, just because that hasn't given enough time for even the seedlings that are on the ground to become mature. So I personally do not think that it'll be able to recover.
We've been working out here since immediately after Hurricane Irma. Hurricane Ian was a surge event, so it was inundated with about 10 to 12 feet of water. That seemed to protect the leaves in the lower part of the canopy. But it also dumped a lot of sediment in here, and we don't know what the long-term implications of that are going to be. We don't know whether it will raise the elevation in this system. We don't know whether it added nutrients to the system, but these are all the sorts of questions that we're trying to answer by studying this particular plot of land. I think that what we've learned from Irma and Ian back to back and this close together is that every storm is unique in terms of wind damage, storm surge impact. Is there sediment laid down on the landscape? Does it create a barrier or alter the hydrology that is here? All of those things can be completely different from storm to storm. I think that we're going to probably be seeing the impacts of Ian probably for maybe 3 to 10 years. Most likely for this system to recover, it's probably going to take somewhere between 5 to 10 years for these small propagules to become mature, large trees in this system, but we don't know the answer.
I hope this research will be able to educate just environmental practitioners, people that have mangroves in their backyard, or people that care for mangroves. I hope that this will encourage them and allow them to figure out ways in which they can facilitate more mangrove colonization on their landscapes, and probably also influence policy, because we need mangroves to keep reproducing and we need a lot of them. So hopefully this encourages policy in some type of way.
When we set up this long-term monitoring plot in this mangrove system, my colleague Win Everham and I, we had been talking about what is it we wish people were studying here on our landscape in 50 years? What are they going to want to know or wish we had been studying? So what we're hopefully doing with this long-term study plot is creating a database of information that is going to hopefully help inform policy and decision-making moving forward. And it's going to also hopefully impact the way that we manage and protect these systems so that we can reap the benefits moving forward.